So what we did, we started out with about a 10-pound slab of pork belly from Costco. I then took that pork belly and cut it in half. So this particular recipe is, a little over 4.5 pounds or so of pork belly that we'll start with. The way we're going to do the bacon today is using an equilibrium cure. So that is basically what I've done is I've weighed this piece of meat, and we're going to use about a 2.5 weight percent of salt cure on this. So it's just that easy. Whatever this weighs, multiply it by 2.5%, and you'll know how much salt you're going to use to cure the bacon. The foundational piece of the cure is 3 ingredients. It's salt, normal sodium chloride salt. It's a cure or a prog powder or Instacure #1. That is 6.25% sodium nitrite, and then also some sugar. So those 3 ingredients will be the basic cure that you'll use for all bacon. Salt, nitrite, and sugar will be the base cure. So what we're going to do here is, like I said, 2.5% salt. You'll use about 0.25% of the cure, of the prog powder. And then I use about, 1.5% sugar for my basic cure. So again, you just take the weight of the belly, do those calculations for those 3, and that's how you start this. So that's what I've already done. Here is the coarse, just plain old salt. Doesn't need to be anything fancy, doesn't need to be sea salt. That's just straight up salt, kosher salt. The reason I weigh it is you don't have to worry about the density. You don't have to worry about particle size. If I weigh it, I know I get that much salt every time. The advantage of the equilibrium cure is when you put the cure on the bacon, it can stay on the bacon for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it'll never get saltier than 2.5%, which is the whole key of the equilibrium cure. So I have that amount. I have my sugar here that I weighed out per the weight of this pork belly. And then finally, here's the prog powder, or the Instacure, or the #1 cure. You can see here that it's pink, and there's a reason it's pink. I don't think it's pink in all over the world, but it certainly is the US distributors. The pink is basically just to tell you that it's something quite different. It's just an artificial color. The reason is sodium nitrite is poisonous. If you consume way too much of this, not good for you at all. So the whole point of it is to make sure that you can distinguish this from anything else. This is not Himalayan sea salt that's also pink. So what I would recommend you do is when you have your cure, put it away from all of your other sea salts or your table salts. Just keep it completely separate, and just have it in a place where when you're going to do something like this, you'll have to go pull it out special. So that's what I have here. So again, this is about 0.25% of the weight of this belly is in this sodium nitrite. So it's not a whole lot at all. And actually this is 6.25% sodium nitrite. So 93 point whatever percent of this is salt actually. So it's a very, very concentrated chemical that's used. So nevertheless, we'll put that in there, and that will help preserve the meat. It does lots of really, really good things. There's a lot of controversy whether you want sodium nitrite in your food or not. I'm not going to debate that on here. There's plenty of research you can do. All my research indicates that what I'm doing here is 110% safe, and I'm really not going to worry about it. So, but the most advantageous thing it really does for you is we've made this in the past without the prog powder, and that's okay. The bacon still tastes great. We ended up slicing it and freezing it, so it's not like it has to be preserved for a long period of time. But what the prog powder does, the cure, it also keeps the meat keeping a real reddish color. So when we made bacon in the past without it, again, it tastes fine, but it ends up being kind of a dull grayish brown kind of color when you finish it up and when you slice it. So this keeps it the nice red color that we're used to seeing in commercial bacon. So that's probably the biggest reason I use it, to be honest, is just to give it that bacon appearance not as much for the preservative. So that is the foundation of any cure. From that point on, you can add savory, you can add sweet, you can add anything you really like to it. I've really fallen in love with the whiskey bacon, and I've shown that on video now as well. Whiskey bacon's awesome, probably my favorite. This is the pepper bacon with a little bit more sweetness. So those two styles were pretty common. And so yeah, you can add just about anything. So this is a little bit of kind of my recipe on how I've done this and tweaked it over the past. But the point of this is it's just so simple and anyone can do it. There's no special equipment needed, which is really awesome. So let's go ahead and mix up the rest of the ingredients, and then we'll go ahead and get this thing all coated. So in this recipe, we do have the 3: salt, sugar, and cure. This recipe, we also have brown sugar, so even a little more sweet than just the sugar that we already added. Have a little bit of nutmeg, and again, all the quantities I'll put on the video, or I will have in the description of the video. So nutmeg, some thyme. I think this is 2 tablespoons of thyme, if I remember right. So this was grown in our garden and we dehydrated it. So it's really potent. It's really nice. So a couple tablespoons of thyme there. The next ingredient for this is juniper, and you'll find that a lot of the bacon recipes use the juniper berry. So these are whole juniper berries. And so what we have to do is to crush these, or just slightly bruise them so they emit their flavor better. So you can do this lots of ways. You put it in a bowl, and you can just use a rolling pin or whatever just to kind of crush the berries. You can do that. You can also put them in a coffee grinder, one of the bladed coffee grinders, and just give them a quick little zap just to kind of bust them up a little bit. I've done them several ways. That way works really well, but you end up with, little pieces of juniper berry, and then you end up with bigger pieces. So this is the way I think officially. Just bruise them. It'll release their flavors, and you'll be good to go. So there's the juniper berries kind of crushed up. So we'll add that to our dry mix and get that all mixed up. The last ingredient we have that I won't add to this mix because it'll get messy is we've got garlic. So what we'll do is we'll put this dry mixture on first, and then once we have the dry mixture all over it, we'll go ahead and add the garlic, and then from there we'll bag it. So all right, we'll get this, make sure the brown sugar is all busted up here. And it smells fantastic too, by the way, all these spices. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so that will work. So now, like I said, making bacon at home is just so killer easy. And once you have this, you'll never want to buy commercial bacon again, to be quite honest. Okay, so I turned it over to the fat side up. I'll probably put less on the fat side than I will on the rest of the meat, just because the penetration into the fat isn't as good as it will be on the meat side, but nevertheless we'll get flavor everywhere. The juniper berries are a bit of a pain. They roll all over. You'll have to, when you put it in your bag, you'll have to just place them on top, make sure they're distributed. All right, so that's probably good enough for the fat side. Now we'll turn it over. Okay, press it down. Now we'll go ahead and do the top of the belly. And just try to get it equal. This isn't rocket science. They've been curing meat like this in similar ways forever. To be honest, as long as you get your percentages right, you put it in the fridge at a refrigerator temperatures, it's really hard to screw this up. As a matter of fact, I've never screwed up bacon from is it any good, you know, is it any good or is it spoiled? That's never even ever been an issue. The taste maybe, and maybe I've had mixes I didn't really like, but so now we'll just make sure you leave a little bit at the end to do the edges. Make sure we get it all. And again, we put this in the bag, it's going to expel some water as it cures. So it'll create its own little curing brine, so to speak. And then every few days you can kind of move the bag and massage the cure in a little bit. It's not killer necessary that you do it, but it doesn't hurt. Just to make sure that any liquid that's accumulated, you move it around the bag and make sure that you get all of it exposed to the cure the best that you can. Okay, so that is that's it. Believe it or not, just that little bit of dry stuff is all that's needed. Now we'll go ahead and throw our garlic on top. Like I said, if you add this to the dry mixture, it just makes a mess. So just put it on top, spread it around. I'll put most of it on the meat side, just like that. Okay. Okay. And that is how it's done. So the next part is putting this in a bag. So what do I need to do with this to put it in the fridge? It's really pretty easy. I have a vacuum sealer and I have 11 and a half inch bags. So what I'll do, and I'll show here in a little bit, is that I'll take this slab and put it in a vacuum bag, and then I'll go ahead and vacuum seal it. So that removes all the air. It's really nice, right? The other way you can do it is a Ziploc bag. You can use a 2-gallon Ziploc bag if you'd like. That'll work, and then just take as much of the air out as you can and put it in the fridge. The other method, that if you're doing multiples of these, you can also use some kind of plastic tub, and you could stack them, and you can stack them up in a tub and put them in the fridge and let them cure that way. When I do it, whether I do just one slab like this or I do 4 or 6 of them, I individually put them in bags, and then I can have flavors mix as well. I can have different flavors. So you really can do it just about any way you want, but the bags seem to work really well. So if it's your first time, you may want to try to use the bags, and then you can alter it as you get experience. So okay, there we go. That's that. I'll go get the vacuum bag, and we'll put this in the vacuum bag, and then I'll vacuum it and show you what that looks like. All right, so this is the fun part, getting this thing in there. So if you have a vacuum sealer, if you go ahead and make a little cuff, peel it down a little bit, then you put the belly in it and you roll this back up, it's not all messed up with seasoning, and it seals better. So it's just keeping the surface to seal a little cleaner. So if I look at this, it's least wide here, it has less width, so I'll put the belly in that way. So make that little cuff, and the way I find it works best is just to try to keep it on the cutting board. And it's a bit messy, and you will lose some juniper like I said earlier, but just try to fold it like that, get it in there, and then as soon as you get it almost in there, try to get it to the bottom of the bag, and then you can kind of unfold the sides and then push it down. Okay. All right, so that's that. So now I will go to the vacuum sealer and seal that. Okay, so here is the pepper bacon sealed. Looks pretty good. You can see you got most of the air out of it, so that's pretty good. There's always a balance with sealing this too much in the vacuum sealer because it is a little bit wet. You'll suck a lot of the juice up, and then it's harder to seal. So I usually use pulse, and I get it to where it's almost, you know, evacuated all the air, and then I hit seal. So it's not completely vacuum packed, but hey, it's close enough. When it's in the fridge, it'll sit there every couple days. I'll rotate it and just make sure that all the liquid's moved around if there is any more liquid in there. But hey, it's really that easy. So okay, there we go. Okay, we are back with the two bacons. So again, we made the whiskey bacon, used Baker's Mark for that, and we also made just pepper bacon. So real easy, right? It's not hard at all. So what are we going to do next? So we've got these things ready to go. Like I said, I'm going to put them in the refrigerator for probably 7 to 10 days. Again, with the equilibrium cure, guys, it doesn't matter whether they would go longer than that or not. So just let it be based on your schedule. So that's what I'll do. It might be a couple weeks if I don't have time during the week, since today's Sunday. So I may wait a couple weeks. Again, nothing to sweat at all. I'll probably rotate these every few days. Again, it's not something that I would set an alarm for or a reminder. Just when I think about it, I'll just go and turn them over and just make sure things still look good. I've never had an issue. Sometimes I've forgotten about them the whole time. They've gone a couple weeks. I've never touched them. They've turned out great. So what's going to happen after that? So once we get to that point, I'll pull these out of the bags and I'll show them to you. The cool thing about equilibrium cure is we don't have to rinse these off when we're done. We can just let them go as we got them. Once we get them out of the cure, we're going to let them come to kind of an equilibrium in the refrigerator by themselves for a few days. And we'll do that so they can air dry. And it also forms something called a pellicle, because what we're going to do with these is we're going to smoke them. So we'll explain a little bit about that when we get to that point. But the whole plan is to get these things out of these bags after they're cured, let them equalize in the refrigerator for a few days, and then we'll smoke them. And we have two choices to smoke these. We can hot smoke them or we can cold smoke them. I've done both ways. Both ways turn out awesome bacon. I prefer cold smoke. I prefer it for the texture. So I'll show the setup of the cold smoke. I can show the setup of the hot smoke. So get these out of the bag, get them equalized in the fridge, get them on the smoker. As soon as they're smoked, then we'll slice them and then we'll package them up. So, okay, we're gonna wait 14 days. I'll come back and we'll do this again and we'll show the next part of how this is done. So hopefully that's been informative and certainly has been interesting for me. So, all right, till next time, we'll see you.